So, good morning, and welcome to the Fun Roots. My name is Tian, and it's been quite a while since I've been back, and a lot of things have happened. Um, I'll leave that for another episode, but we'll just resume back to where we were. Today, I like to share a thought that I had, and sometimes I feel like it is easy to kind of say that or feel that life works in a linear path, where in reality, that's not the case. And the camera keeps falling down, so I gotta keep adjusting it up. Don't know why, but that's just how it is. So, life in a linear path, like going from one point to another, from one achievement to another, as if progress and growth were supposed to happen in ways that kind of feels like it is a straight path. But in reality, it doesn't happen like that. In reality, life kind of works like going from one step to another. And when we get there, it turns out it's not what we expected. So we have to go back and take another step, or two, or three. And maybe that feels like finally we've gotten to a point where maybe this is the right path. Years goes by, and all of a sudden, it's not what we expected it to be. So we have to go back again and just keep doing that back and forth until one point, until we get to the next checkpoint, you could say. And the checkpoint is kind of like the spot where it kind of feels right. Something feels like it's supposed to be. And there's people here. And so this thing keeps going up and down. So, but this idea of life going in a straight path kind of got me thinking how a raindrop, like we would think that the easiest or the fastest way down to the ocean is a straight path. But that couldn't be further away from the truth, because a river is not a straight shot from the mountain all the way down to the ocean. Even though that logically, that is the fastest and the best path to take. But sometimes that is not the path to take, because life doesn't allow to. Not that it denies our path, but life has its own pulse and its own way of operating. And to carve our own path in the world is a common misconception, I feel like. We cannot carve our ways into the world in a way that, yes, we can do what we desire and achieve those things, but it's not a singular decision that happens and it occurs. For example, if I would want to build a business, yes, it's me that's putting in the work. Yes, it's me that's doing the work. But let's not forget that there are other people involved. So it's not only me that does the work and carve my own path. Yes, I am making decisions in my path, and I'm the one that's deciding those paths. But like a lake, it needs a path. It needs rocks. It needs dirt. It needs things in nature to kind of carve its path, and the water will take its own course. Water doesn't decide to just make a straight shot to the ocean. even though that's where it will end up as. Like all of us will end up in the grave at one point, but the fastest way is a way, but it is not the way. Just because there is a way doesn't mean that it is the way. Um, and a lot of times I feel like that's how life kind of works. We grow in ways that is very unexpected. Like if I ask myself, where would I be 10 years ago? There's no way I would answer or even think of where I would be. Because the reality of it all is that I couldn't imagine where I would be 10 years ago, even though that the possibilities are there. I could imagine and dream where I would want to be, but whether that happens or not is still a chance. And the camera keeps dropping down. And so sometimes the water, it rains, it freezes in the mountains, and it melts, and the water will flow down slowly. But it doesn't make a straight shot to the ocean. Sometimes it has to make its way down a creek, a river, between streams, has to jump on and off the stream, and all of a sudden it finds itself stuck in a pond. And then that's the shot that it had, and it failed to make it. So it has to wait to condensate, go back up, and try again. So it rains somewhere up in a mountain, it freezes, it has to wait for the right opportunity to come. The sun comes out, it melts it, and off it goes again down a mountain. And again, maybe it tries the same path, maybe it's a different path. It goes down this river, jumps into a lake, and follows the streams, and all of a sudden it's in a bigger lake. You couldn't make it to the ocean. Well, try again. Wait until the sun comes out, condensates, goes up in the air, waits, rain up in the mountain, freezes, waits for the sun to come out, melts, and tries again. And at some point, maybe it's not on the surface how it's going to make it down to the ocean. Sometimes it has to go deep down in the ground where nobody even knows where it's at. But at some point, it will end up in the ocean. At some point. Whether it is being a drop that is seeping deep down into the ground, and the trees will use it through its roots, extract all of its water components, feed itself into this tree, and then the water has now been transformed to be a part of this tree, and all of a sudden now it becomes a leaf. And the leaf comes out in the sun, absorbs the sun, the fall comes, it falls down to the ground, and all of a sudden it dries up. And again, the water condensates up into the air, goes up to the mountain, rinse and repeat. And sometimes this deer comes to the lake and river, drinks it, carries that water all the way down the stream and the mountains, and somewhere close to the ocean, and all of a sudden now, boom, it will release itself from the deer and makes its way down to the ocean at some point. So life is very much like so in ways that the path is never a straight path. But it feels easy and it feels reasonable to go through life in a way that it is a straight shot. The fastest way is the best way. The most efficient way is the best way. Life should be lived in ways that, like it should. Why waste time, right? Waste time. Why do we waste time on playing video games, watching Netflix? Life should be about maximizing the experiences and outputs and doing all of these things. And yet, when we look at nature itself, there's a quote by Lao Tzu that says, "Nature does not hurry, and yet everything is accomplished." Grasses doesn't fight each other and strangle and choke each other just to grow. Well, that's a beautiful bug. Trees does not bend itself over to the next tree and start knocking themselves over try to survive and strive. They simply exist. They are who they are, and they become who they are. Whether or not they make it is another story, but everything that exists has its own timeline. It has its own way of living, its own pace and time, but they're not the one that's setting the pace. The pace is Earth, the moon, the stars, everything in between that controls the flow of life. And everything that is existing is just a byproduct of that. They have to either adapt, become, and be. And that is essentially how life moves. Yes, we have the freedom to move physically. Yes, we have the freedom to make decisions and do things in the world. But again, life is not just singular, it's plural. It's connection. Everything is connected. Nothing exists by itself. Everything has some ties to one another in one shape or another. And again, life doesn't move in a linear direction where it is the most ideal, the most efficient path, the fastest path. Life just moves, and the current moves, and life will have to adjust and adapt to the movements of Earth and life itself. Whether we like it or not, that's just how it is. But it is a often easy way to think that I will carve my path in the world, I will achieve the things that I dream of, I will this and that. But from my experience, what I want is not what I need. And a lot of times, what I think is the best for me might not even be the best for me. And there's a quote in a Vietnamese saying that goes like this, like, a man's plan is nothing compared to God's plan. In this term, we can use God as any shape and form of the higher, the divine, the energy that's above us. For instance, let's say if I were to be an apple tree, and then I say to myself, oh, when I grow up, I'm gonna have 100 apples that is very shiny, and it's going to be the most sweetest, the most delicious apples that is ever to exist. And anyone who tries my apple is gonna be in awe because of all the hard work I put into, and everything that I put into this apple is gonna be the best thing that is ever to exist. And somewhere along the way, drought happens. There's no water. Now all of a sudden, there is some kind of dent that happens within the growth of the tree apples, or the apple tree. And all of a sudden, there's a disease that happens along the way, and now all of a sudden the apples has another dent. And the plant all of a sudden now becomes skewed. Instead, if there were a drought to happen, well, we learn how to survive and thrive. If there's a disease that happens, well, we learn how to survive and thrive. Learn how to navigate through the disease, through the drought. And the goal in mind is obviously just to produce glorious looking and delicious apples. But however, planning that might not ensure that, because along the way anything can happen. And by staying open-minded, I feel like it allows dialogues like that to happen, the adaptability, and not to be so set in stone in one vision. And if that doesn't happen, then it's the end of the world. But rather, to have the opportunity to grow and constantly be in flux with nature allows the adaptation to happen. And by the end of the day, the ones that are adapting and managing the changes, or the ones that survives and thrives? What good does it do if an apple tree doesn't produce an apple or apples? Whereas the other one who produces some apples is not the best, but there are some. And it manages to produce seeds for its next lineage. Whereas the other one who had high hopes and dreamt of creating these delicious, gorgeous apples, all of a sudden now is gone. Because it had its dreams and achievements to blind itself, not being able to see past that, not being able to see the truth and reality that exist. The truth is that things will happen, life will happen, changes will happen. And whether or not the apple tree can manage to change according to that is another story. And such lessons I bring on myself because I feel like if I'm not adaptable and are willing to be open to opportunities in life, I'll be stuck and fixed on my own achievement and things that I want in life. And again, I feel a lot of times things that I want is not necessarily what I need. Yes, if I was a horse, I would want, let's say, this silk embedded saddle, these majestic looking armor to protect myself, and all these glorious things, but again, that might not be what I need. What I need is actually nothing on me. To be lighter, to be free, not to be a war horse, because even though it looks cool, it looks like it will protect me from a stab of a sword, but again, it might not be what I need. Because deep inside, I strive for freedom, and I strive for not being tied down. So I don't want a saddle. I don't want armors. I don't want anything on me. I just want to be free. And so again, the fine line of what I want and what I need is to be defined, because otherwise I'll be blinded. I'll be blinded by what I want. And that is the need and the greed. Or the greed, rather, the ego, you could say. But if I remain open, life will happen. And what I need is according to my present moment. And what I want is perhaps influenced by the past or the future. And it might not be what's necessary at this very moment in time. So, with that being said, I feel like this will wrap up today's episode about what I need might not always be what I want, and what I want might not always be what I need. And again, this can affect the ways that I maneuver through life, or life itself, by wanting things and needing things and thinking that life is the best by moving in a straight arrow, straight shot. But just because the water is the top of the mountain does not mean the end goal is the ocean, that it should fly straight down. You should have a straight shot down. By doing so, it will lose out the experience and everything that life has to offer from the top of the mountain to the ocean. And in the same way, life from birth to death is defined, but everything that happens in between is what makes life worth. And it's not about the quickest way to get to death, or the right path, you could say. It's everything that happens between that defines the life and makes it worthy, makes it worthwhile and memorable. Because we all have the same destination, just like the water drops from the top of the mountain will eventually end up in the ocean. And like us, we will end up in the ground. But until then, let's make life worthy. So be kind to yourself, take care, and just know that things take time. Until then, cheers.